We're also very fortunate today to have Reverend Donna Johnson here with us. Donna has been a regular here for many years. She is a very good friend of mine, and she just got a new appointment at a church in Arizona. It's Green Valley, about 20 minutes outside of Tucson. So this might be her farewell talk, although sometime in the future I'm sure she'll be back to visit us. Donna, would you please come forward? How are you today?
Tell you my name?
No, how are you today?
Oh, how am I today?
Yeah.
I'm very well. And
Good.
how are you?
I'm just fine. It's so great to have you here.
It's always good to be
I'm
here.
sure the people will enjoy your talk.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, new friends in Green Valley, Saharita. Miss you, and someday I'll be there. We will see just when that day is. It is Palm Sunday, and you know, the whole story of Jesus riding in and everybody waving and saying, "Here comes the Messiah, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," which means in the name of spiritual law, actually, that which has authority over you. So he comes in the name of spiritual law, and yet we know that that law played out in an unpredictable way that most of us would say is unpredictable, because when we're with spiritual law and going with the flow, everything is supposed to be exactly what we envision, right? No, not always. One of my key things in Holy Week is Garden of Gethsemane, which literally means an oil press. So we have Jesus praying while the disciples cannot stay awake and keep watch with him. And he's in the garden, and he knows what's in store for him. He knows where this is leading. And so he prays with all of his heart, "If I can not have to do this, let this cup pass from me, please." And then he prays one of the most powerful prayers, the most powerful in my opinion, that I have taken and internalized as a child. I say what I want, and I also say, "Nonetheless, not my will, but yours be done." That's the deepest surrender a person can have. It takes courage to surrender like that. It takes a lot of courage because we're not in control of it. We realize we're not in control. The things that come our way may be things we have bidden come our way, and some things are coming our way, not because we're not responsible, but because of unconsciousness or belonging to a group, a larger group, kind of like humanity. You know, I'm part of humanity. What humanity experiences, I experience on some level. So I let go. That's number one. Whenever we're in these situations of a rock and a hard place, so to speak, we have to let go. And as a friend of mine said, if you let go, but you don't turn it over to God, you're simply turning it upside down. So let go, surrender. What follows that to fill the void of not knowing is a trust. A trust that whatever is transpiring is for your personal growth, for your blessing, and a blessing to the world in some way. So we keep our eyes on that principle, on that thought that God is absolute good. And then we persevere. We put the effort into moving through our challenges, whatever they are. And we're all moving through some right now, as Duke indicated. You know, moving, as I know, is not an easy thing. And he moved down the street. I'm moving across the country. So here we go. Persevere. Keep putting the effort as you trust and have faith. And then probably one of the most important things in letting go is to let go of habits and old thoughts. Old thoughts and habits that may have been just perfectly fine in an old paradigm. There's been a lot of talk about the impact of this pandemic and how the world will change as a result of it. I know my world has changed, and I know yours has too in some way. So letting go of old habits means I need to return to principles that perhaps I haven't had in my conscious mind so much, or I need to learn some new things. I guess my throat gets caught. Some new things. I have been reading this past week about resiliency. What makes a person resilient? And goodness knows Jesus modeled resiliency. Resiliency is the ability to grow and to recalibrate oneself and to make principled improvisations, to improvise through principle so that there is a new outcome that meets the changing circumstances. It calls for us to be adaptable and to embrace new opportunities. That's what a successful person does. They are resilient and they are able to move through adversity. So what does failure look like? Well, maybe the opposite, an inability to grow, an inability to embrace a new idea, or to learn to do something in a different way in order to accomplish the goal. Being open and receptive is very important. Open and receptive to what? The heart's wisdom. The heart's wisdom. Which means that connection needs to be cultivated. Do you remember the old Victrola commercial with the big horn and the dog sitting there listening to the record that's going round and round? And I think the caption was, "The sound of his master's voice." That's what prayer and meditation does for us. It tunes us into the still small voice that never deserts us, always is guiding us in the direction of our highest good, and always paving the way, going before us to prepare the path. So there was the prayer of surrender, and then there was a prayer of crucifixion, what I call my prayer of crucifixion. So he's going through some tough, painful stuff. And what does he say? "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That is the height of love and compassion. Forgive them. And the people may have benefited from that prayer to God, asking for that. But my belief is the one who benefited was Jesus. He let it go, whatever betrayals, whatever failures, whatever, anything that could anchor him to this worldly consciousness, he let go. And right after that, "Into thy hands I commit my spirit." Poof, free to become fully incarnated divine consciousness. And that's the resurrection we'll be celebrating next Sunday. So I'm happy to be here today, happy to be in this church that I love with friends that I have and love. And all of you who are looking in via live stream, it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. And we will have a beautiful Easter Holy Week because it's here. It's here. And when you share it with a phone call, with a bump, however you share it, just share the love. Forgive all that's holding you back from feeling this joy so that you too can rise in consciousness to your full capacity. Namaste.
For those of you who have seen the service for the last couple of weeks, you've probably recognized that it was a bit somber and it was a bit more funereal than today's service. And this is not to mean that we're throwing caution to the wind when it comes to COVID-19. The virus is important. It is something that we need to be concerned about, and it's something we need to do every precaution for. But also, every one of us needs a time when we can step back from the line, just relax, take a deep breath, find some rest and inspiration. So that's what the service is all about today. I know everybody's lives are confusing right now, and they're a bit difficult, if not disturbing. My wife and I moved from the place we'd been in for 30 years, just before the coronavirus lockdown came about. So we moved for 2 days, and that was a lot of time together. And then we got into the new place, and we discovered we had moved boxes that had not been opened since the first time we moved 30 years ago. Also, when we got in there, because of the lockdown, for 3 days, we spent a lot of time together. Now, for anybody here that has moved with a spouse or loved one, you know that can be difficult. Everybody's got different opinions. Or have you ever been confined with somebody who you really, really love for a long period of time and it's not by your choice? That can be difficult. Somebody asked me the other day if my wife and I were getting settled. And I said, the only settling we're doing is trying to figure out who gets a new place in the divorce. My wife has a different interpretation of the COVID-19 rules. Instead of being 6 feet apart, she claims that we need to be 60 feet apart. So I'm doing everything to accommodate that. This is Palm Sunday. On the Christian calendar, it is the beginning of Holy Week. Palm Sunday begins the movement towards Good Friday and next Sunday, Easter, when Jesus was resurrected and ascended into heaven. Almost 2,000 years ago, Jesus was abused by the religious leaders. They would throw rocks at him, they would discount him, depreciate him, turn the people against him. But something turned. The people heard that he was creating these wonderful miracles and that he had a message that was full of hope. So on Palm Sunday, he rode into Jerusalem on the back of a small donkey. The people in the streets were waving palm branches as a signal of victory or a signal of hope. They cheered him and they praised him as the Messiah according to the Old Testament prophecy that God would send a messenger. And to them, that was Jesus. At the same time he was being cheered in the streets, the religious leaders of the day were hovering in the alleyways, conniving and conspiring about how to get rid of Jesus. They were afraid. They were afraid that he had upset their traditional system of religion. They were afraid that they would lose their power and their prestige if Jesus continued. So they started planning a way to get rid of Jesus. Now, Jesus was a smart man, and he knew this. He knew that there was an enemy out there, an adversary that was out to get him. And he was also a brilliant man. He could have gone to the religious leaders and say, I'm tired of being an outcast. I'm tired of being abused. I'm tired of being by myself with 12 disciples. I want to join up with you guys. And he would have easily risen to a high priest. But he didn't, primarily because of integrity. He was given a mission from God to deliver a message to the people on earth. And when the disciples tried to convince him that perhaps he should back off a little bit and become friendlier with the religious people, he said, you can satisfy the whole world, but if you lose yourself in that process, you gain nothing. So 5 days later, Jesus was arrested by the Roman soldiers. He was taken to a private courtyard where he was imprisoned, and there he sat all alone. The people outside the courtyard that were cheering him 5 days before that, calling him the Messiah, now were yelling, "Crucify him," because the Roman soldiers had changed their perspective of Jesus. As Jesus sat there, he wondered, why do all these people hate me? Where are the people that love me? Where are the disciples? Where's my mother Mary? Where's Mary Magdalene? Where are the 200 people that I healed? Where are the 5,000 people that I fed? And he wondered, did I fail? God did give me this incredible mission and an incredible message, but did I fail to deliver it because it doesn't seem like the people get it? And he wondered, am I now unworthy in the eyes of God? And he wondered, and he wondered, and finally he came to the realization, no, I didn't fail. The message was spot on. The mission was spot on. I did what God asked me to do, is to present the message to the world. And if people don't get it, that's okay. I can't force it upon them. Jesus planted the seeds for a better world and a better life. And today, some 2,000 years later, there's 30 million Christian churches and over 2 billion Christians on the planet. That is not a failure. I oftentimes think about Jesus sitting in that courtyard, and I wonder about myself. There have been times when I've made a mistake, when I did something wrong, where people misunderstood me, going through a divorce, losing my job, going out of business. And during those times, I felt isolated, I felt dark, I felt pain, I felt all alone. And just like Jesus, I began to wonder, it's me. I'm the failure. I am not good enough. And all of that came from the religious background that I came up with that talked about original sin. Many of the Christian churches hold that original sin is a result of Adam in the Garden of Eve sinning against God's orders, and that has transferred down to every single one of us because we're a descendant of Adam's. Original sin. We are born sinners. We are sinful in the eyes of God. We are unworthy. We need to suffer during this lifetime so we can gain salvation after this lifetime and get into heaven. And that's not true. That is not true at all. What we are, each and every one of us, is an original blessing. Not an original sin, an original blessing. We come into this world and we bring joy. Every person that looks down at a newborn baby, they smile. They're joyful. They feel love in their heart for that little baby. We are not sinners. We make mistakes. We have problems. But if there's one thing that we need to establish, it is that we have 100% acceptance, unconditional acceptance of ourselves. And then we can accept others in the same way. So I invite you to take a few moments as we move into meditation. And just follow me in this breathing exercise. We're going to breathe in to the count of 4. We're going to hold to the count of 4, breathe out to the count of 4, and then pause for the count of 4. So we'll now move into meditation. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Now please do that with your own timing for a moment or two as we move into meditation.